O voluntariado EPM surgiu no dia 18 de março de uma iniciativa conjunta entre os alunos de medicina e a diretoria da Escola Paulista de Medicina, acreditando na vontade e capacidade dos alunos em fazer a diferença no enfrentamento à pandemia. Logo que nos organizamos, iniciamos o primeiro projeto, a campanha de doações para o Hospital São Paulo. Observando o crescente número de casos de Covid-19 em outros países, entendemos a necessidade dos equipamentos de proteção individual para os médicos da linha de frente do hospital e para os pacientes. Nos revezamos em turnos desde então para receber as doações de empresas e da comunidade e desenvolvemos alternativas aos produtos comerciais. Conseguimos, com isso, manter nossos profissionais protegidos e manter a segurança no atendimento. O hospital criou uma unidade para atender pacientes com sintomas respiratórios com maior atenção. O voluntariado viu a possibilidade de promover a telemedicina com os pacientes desta unidade, orientando fatores de risco e acolhendo as pessoas doentes. Isto diminuiu o número que retornava ao hospital com sintomas leves e resolveu as dúvidas da população em relação à pandemia. A demanda das comunidades próximas ao Hospital São Paulo surgiram também no início do projeto. Assim, nasceram projetos de apoio às comunidades com organização e trabalho ativo dos voluntários. Realizamos vacinação contra a influenza no local, produzimos e distribuímos material informativo atuando na educação em saúde. Estendemos a vacinação em batalhões da Polícia Militar e vacinamos os profissionais de saúde do próprio hospital. Outras iniciativas, como a de acolhimento de alunos doentes, de promoção de saúde, de pesquisa, de cuidado com a saúde mental, de acolhimento às pessoas em luto, de cuidado e atenção à criança e de produção de vídeos educativos aos profissionais de saúde surgiram. Hoje, são mais de 20 frentes de trabalho e com esse número de projetos e o aumento da demanda, foi necessário criar uma rede organizacional com todos os projetos. Essa rede foi centrada em um comitê composto por 6 alunos da medicina, 16 professores e a diretoria da escola. Todas as demandas são discutidas em reuniões, construindo os projetos a partir da opinião e participação de todos do grupo. Então, logo o projeto é aprovado, são criados subgrupos pela internet, dando início aos trabalhos. A organização em rede e o trabalho em equipe fazem a diferença e se mostram em nossos resultados. As doações arrecadadas passam dos milhares de itens e milhões em financiamento. Além dos números que as ações geram, das 12 mil vacinas aplicadas, das 2.500 ligações para pacientes, das 1.000 refeições distribuídas, a solidariedade que o projeto inspira atinge muito mais do que se pode contar em números. A paralisação das aulas impôs novos desafios pedagógicos e o voluntariado se mostrou uma opção. Ensina aos alunos e aos professores sobre medicina humanizada na prática, retribuição à sociedade, conhecimento e solidariedade. A faculdade tem deveres com a sociedade que a cerca, e seus alunos não podem ficar alienados disto, e, realmente, não ficaram. O legado que esse projeto deixa é como se pode fazer uma educação médica melhor, como incluir os alunos ativamente no processo, como sair dos muros da faculdade e trabalhar com a população, como valores de empatia, de solidariedade, de cuidado com o outro são a base da medicina que a escola deseja construir. A retomada das aulas presenciais para o 6º ano e teóricas à distância para o 5º já são diferentes por causa desse legado. O futuro possibilita muito mais para a Escola Paulista de Medicina e seus alunos.
Há mais de 80 anos, o Hospital São Paulo vem cuidando da saúde de brasileiros e brasileiras. Com a chegada do coronavírus ao Brasil, temos atuado dia e noite com a missão de salvar vidas. Neste momento tão crítico da pandemia, houve um aumento significativo na procura por atendimento médico e hospitalar. Pessoas chegam com febre, tosse, dificuldade de respirar. E para garantir a segurança de nossos profissionais de saúde e continuar a tratar de forma adequada nossos pacientes, precisamos da sua ajuda. Todas as doações salvarão vidas. Tudo que está sendo arrecadado é divulgado de maneira transparente em nosso site. Junte-se a esta rede de solidariedade. Saiba como doar em www.unifesp.br/doe-hsp. Quem salva vidas precisa viver.
A gente sabe acreditar em super-heróis. A gente sabe o que é cuidar do outro. A gente sabe como é ficar às vezes longe da escola, dos amigos. A gente sabe o que significa não estar perto de quem a gente ama. A gente sabe o que é ter medo. Sabe o que é brigar com um inimigo que a gente não vê. A gente sabe brincar dentro de casa. A gente sabe esperar. A gente sabe se proteger. A gente sabe a importância de amar. A gente sabe lutar. A gente sabe ganhar. A gente sabe manter a esperança. A gente sabe acreditar.
So, hello everyone, welcome to the second warm-up organized in a partnership between Braincoms and a Black Students Commission. My name is Giovanna Magno, I'm a member of Braincoms Organizing Committee in a Black São Paulo, and along with my colleague Luisa Berbel, member of Braincoms Organizing Committee, we are going to lead today a discussion between our guests. I would like to present Matheus Simonato, MD, Escola Paulista de Medicina. He was a research intern at São Paulo Hospital from University of British Columbia in Vancouver. Canada, and also a clinic intern at Mayo Clinic, National Institute of Health Clinical Center, University of Washington, and Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Today, he is a Clinical Trials Center Research Fellow at Cardiovascular Research Foundation in New York, and he is applying to the Internal Medicine Residence Program at the United States. We have here to Victor Skrugi, MD, PhD at São Paulo University, postgraduate at Heidelberg University, German, and at the University Paris Descartes, French. Linda Shane, MD, PhD, transplant surgeon, surgical director of Living Kidney Donor Program at the University of Miami, and also the Abdominal Transplant Surgery Fellowship Director at Miami Transplant Institute. Specialist in living donors, laparoscopy, and kidney at pancreas transplant. Assistant Professor of Surgery at the University of Miami. First, I would like to welcome our guests, say thank you on behalf of BrainCom's organizing committee and ABLAC for our willingness. Today, we will have the initial speech with Dr. Victor Skrugi, in which he is going to introduce the team, all you need to know about fellowship. Then we will pass to a discussion based on some questions that we are going to ask them, so they will be able to tell us a bit more about the experience on fellowship. To start this warm-up, I'm going to ask Dr. Victor to tell us more about his experience. Thank you all.
Okay, hello to everyone. Again, I'm delighted to be participating in this meeting to talk about this theme that is really pleasant for me. I'm trying to share my presentation now. Let's see if it works. Okay, so there you go. I think you can see my presentation. Do you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk and give a great overview about the fellowship. And I would like to begin talking about a friend of mine. It's a short story. So I did a fellowship in France. And when I got there, there was a Brazilian, and he's really good and close friend of mine. And he was doing the same experience that I was supposed to do. And we spent lots of time together there. And so I had this friend of mine, and he was doing the same fellowship I did. And when I went there, I had the most great experience. I learned a lot. I had lots of friends, and the whole experience of being in another country was really good. And this friend of mine that did exactly the same training that I did, he hated the place. He came back to Brazil with a bad impression of France, of the hospital we've been. So we did exactly the same thing. So I think the first thing is to set your goals. And you can have the same experience by two different persons and have a different way to interpret it. So the first question you need to make is if everyone needs a fellowship. And I'll start this presentation with a negative opinion, a negative point of view from a guy, and he was Irish, I think. And this was published in the British Medical Journal, which is really respected journal. And he gave his opinion about doing a fellowship. And I call your attention for this part of his opinion, where he states that maybe it's a conspiracy to make money by the universities, and then he says that it's a club mentality, and it stimulates divisiveness, and it's kind of elitism to do fellowship. So he had a really critic opinion about performing a fellowship, which I disagree. But there's some people that doesn't like the idea of performing fellowship. And well, do you need a fellowship? And this is just some data that I put in to show you that this is an age index. Age index is for the students. It's a way to measure the research power of some medical or some person. Actually, they check your publications and make some math with it. And the highest your index, age index. So your best researcher or have more publishing papers with the most impact. So you can see that the chairman here, they have a higher age index than the assistant or the associate, or even the professor. So you may think that when you want to do academic career, maybe it's better to do fellowship so you can publish it more papers. But in this same paper that was performed with the urology department in the United States, 800 people responded it. There was no difference in the age index between people who performed fellowship and people who didn't perform a fellowship. So, I mean, you may think that's mandatory to do a fellowship if you want to go to the academic career, but it's not mandatory. So why should we do a fellowship? Well, there's lots of different aspects that you should keep in mind, but the first thing that comes to our mind is increasing specific abilities, mainly medical abilities. You can increase your research ability, communication skills between your team and your colleagues, and learn about teamwork because you're in a different environment. Then you got some new people, and well, it really improves your communication and all this spirit of leadership and teamwork. It's really important. But then there's some other stuff that it's not so obvious. When you go to a fellowship, especially abroad, you can have a lot of life experiences that is really important, and I'm going to talk about this later. When you come back to your place where you just started your medical career, you got a higher reputation, and this happens a lot in Brazil. I don't know in the United States, but when you leave, when you come back, the older people, they see you different. If you invest your time doing a fellowship, maybe you get a better financial return when you're older because you have better job opportunities. And maybe if you want to live abroad, if you go to a fellowship, that's a way of starting your contacts and maybe having some job offers abroad as well. And then when you come back to your country, you can bring some knowledge and try to make a difference in your community. So there's a lot of aspects involved in why to do a fellowship, more than just the medical abilities you train. So how do you do to start thinking about performing a fellowship? How do you select your fellowship? First of all, as I told you in the beginning of the story of my friend, you should set your goals, long-term goals specifically, because if you don't want to do academic career, you may choose a different fellowship than someone that wants to do. Then you choose the duration of your fellowship, because there are fellowships that are really short. I did a fellowship in Germany that was 4 to 5 months. It's really short. There are some fellowships that takes 3 years. So if you live abroad for the long period, maybe you need to try to organize yourself in your life as well. So you choose your location and your institution based on the prestige of this institution, and of course, location. There's some better places to live. I lived in Paris. This was a really intense experience. It was better than living in a small city. There was nothing to do. And you should plan yourself about saving money in the financial aspect as well. In the United States, most of the fellowships, I think you have a salary, they pay you money. But if you go to Europe, sometimes you got to spend money to perform a fellowship. And even the fellowships that you don't need to pay to perform it, you're going to live in this place, or you got to rent a house and pay for your food and bills and transportation. So it's a big thing to think about as well. This is a graph. They published it in JAMA. So this is some fellows they had questionnaires about what they used to choose their fellowship programs. There were fellows in otorhinology. This word is hard to speak in Portuguese. In English is even harder. So it's otorhinolaryngology, and so the specific abilities was the main thing they were searching in a fellowship program. Then the faculty reputation and location, and there it goes. And the salary was one of the last things they think about it. And I call the attention for this item here. So the call schedule is really important, because when you're performing a fellowship, it's different from the residence, and you don't want to be on call all the time, so you don't have time to study or to dedicate yourself to learn a different surgical technique or to do your research. So this is just illustrative. And then when you're preparing yourself to fellowship, what should you keep in mind? Maybe actually there's some hints or some tips that I give here. The first thing is to talk with someone that's been there before you, because sometimes you just picture this great university, you've always heard about it, but then you get there and you find some people that are not committed to teaching, and all the place is not ready for the fellowship, and it's really bad experience. Can have a really bad experience. So talk to someone that's been there before, and they can give you some great idea if it's a good place or not. If you have the opportunity, go there before you do the fellowship. Lots of friends of mine, they go to this institution, spend a week observing the medical staff and seeing how the fellowship is, and then if they like it, they apply for the fellowship. As I told before, the financial planning, not only financial, but since it takes time for you to join the fellowship program, and since you're spending a lot of time doing fellowship, you should plan yourself further ahead. So it would be better to start this planning when you're in the university. The hard thing is that you don't know which specialty you're going to do. So sometimes it's hard, but you may try to organize yourself and try to set your goals and try to find out when you want to go and start planning further, as I said. So as I told before as well, you should avoid heavy call schedules, because the fellowship's a really unique time of your life where you're going to dedicate yourself to this different environment and learn a lot from other people that you always heard about, and learn different techniques and bring something new, try to do some innovation. And so you don't want to waste your time on call schedules. Of course, most of the fellowships, they have call schedules, but heavy ones should be avoided. And once you're there in the fellowship, you should be the first one to arrive in the place and the last one to leave, to take the most of it. And this is really important, because when you're a student, most of the people think you're gonna make a good impression of the older doctors if you know a lot of theory and a lot of knowledge. But indeed, the students that make the best impressions are the one that works a lot and works hard, because learning the technical stuff is just got to sit in front of the book and study a lot. And people that works hard, for sure, they will learn a lot as well. So be the first one to arrive. This impresses the staff that is of the fellowship, and they will give you more opportunity, and illustrate your bonds with the institution, with the medical and older staff. So this is one of the most important things hence I have to say about performing a fellowship. And well, are there any alternatives to performing a fellowship? And so this is our timeline of your career, and you start with 18 years old when you go into the med school, and it goes up to 70 or even more in Brazil, because we retired kind of late. So the fellowship, it goes in this part of the lifetime, this point of the lifetime timeline. And before your fellowship, you have a lot of opportunities to do in this period. That is not just a fellowship, but you're going through internship, you're doing your residence, you can start doing research, and you can do all this abroad in different institutions. Doing your internship, you can go to a different institution in Brazil or even abroad to spend a week or 2 weeks observing what people are doing, and you can do observational rotation abroad as well, doing residence, and you can start research since the first year of your university. So this period is really intense, and you can take most of it. And sometimes you don't need to perform a fellowship to reach your goals, because, as I told, the fellowship takes a lot of time, a lot of preparation, and sometimes you got to spend money. So if you're not willing to do a real academic career, sometimes you just go abroad and travel, and you have contact with different people with technology, and open your mind, and has sometimes the same impact in performing a fellowship. I'd just like to call your attention that you have a long timeline after the fellowship as well. And education doesn't stop in the fellowship. You should keep performing, and sometimes observational rotation. You can travel abroad. Sometimes you recycle of your knowledge, and we kind of do this a lot. So I have some friends that are mainly surgeons. They travel abroad to spend a week or 2 weeks, independent of their age, to watch some surgeons performing new techniques, and they learn, and they come back to Brazil and bring it with them. So it's really important to keep this in mind. And so this is one of the things I think is the most important. When you think of performing a fellowship, we're thinking in ourselves and the knowledge we gain during the fellowship. But as I told you, there are lots of different things that we can produce. And if you go abroad to your country, you're going to bring a lot of knowledge and maybe a little power to transform your community. So this is UNESCO data showing the number of students doing doctoral abroad of their country. And China and India, they have a lot of students abroad, but it's a large country with a large population. But I'll call the attention for Germany. They have like 8 million people in their population. And South Korea as well. They have 50 million people living there. And they have 2,000 people, 12,000 people living abroad performing doctoral. So it's a lot of percentual population living abroad, learning new technologies to bring back to their country. And Brazil, it stands right here with the others, with other countries like France, Italy, United States. They do a lot of fellowship, but they do inside of the United States. And so Brazil, we don't send many students abroad. And it's bad because you can see Germany and South Korea, they're developed countries, and lots of people go abroad and bring new knowledge. And this, as I told, has the power of transformation of the community. So this is a bigger sense of performing a fellowship. If you come back to your country, you will influence people around you. And if you're involved with teaching, sometimes you can even do more difference and transform your country. So I think the biggest thing about performing fellowship is not only your individual skills that you learn, not only the experience you live abroad, because it's really intense, and it will transform you as a human being, because you're living in a place that you don't know anyone, you're making new friends. Sometimes if you have the opportunity to go with your wife or husband, then you kind of straight your bonds because you're living abroad without your family. And this is something experience that most people don't live. So there's a higher meaning of performing a fellowship, despite of the negative view of the Irishman that started I showed in the beginning of the presentation. I think I incentivize people to perform it. Nowadays in Brazil, we have a lot of good fellowships programs being developed, and then sometimes you need to travel too far to perform a fellowship. But of course, as I told you, you should set your goals and try to find which are your purpose or objectives, as indeed. And that's all I have to say. And I hope it helps you to make your choice. Okay, so we're back to the discussion.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask some questions that students made, and we're leading a discussion. Dr. Lina will be the moderator. And so the first question we have is addressed to Victor. What is your opinion about abroad exchanges during graduation?
Sorry, about
exchange experience abroad during graduation.
I think it's really important to go if you have a chance in Brazil or even abroad, because every different period of your life that you go abroad and learn something, you kind of look to different stuff. If you go as a student, you learn some things that you not learn when you're older. When you're older, you pay attention to other things. So as I told you, just don't learn medical things, but you're going to see different institution, how it works, how people thinks, how they behave. You watch good examples, bad examples, and this makes you more complete. So I think it's really important to go everywhere you can and try to see different scenarios.
We can extend this question to the other guests if they want to say something about it.
Yeah, of course. So I had the opportunity to go abroad during medical school, and it was pretty much, I think, the defining experience that I had during medical school. I spent 1 year in Vancouver doing research, and that was what led me to continue working with research once I came back to Brazil, and then also gave me the interest to come to the United States. So I think that it can really change your life, change your direction. What is important though is that once you go, you, as Dr. Strudy said, I think it's very important to set your goals beforehand, before you go, so that once you get to that foreign country, you're not lost and you don't lose track of what was your goal eventually when you went there. So I've seen a lot of students that once they go and they get, for instance, in the United States, they get overwhelmed with the possibilities and things, and then they lose track. They don't dedicate themselves as much as they could to research. They get more interested in, anyway, during like tourism instead of actually putting in the effort. And Americans, they want to see the effort. So that's something that's very clear to me. They want to see the work, and if you don't do that, then people won't care about you. That's the truth. So I think that it's a great opportunity, but try to come when you have some maturity to understand what you're doing, and don't lose focus, don't lose track of what brought you here, brought you to do this experience.
So what I'm hearing from everyone is it's an important thing to do, fellowship, for lifelong learning. So everyone seeks work-life balance. And when you're training and you're studying, you will have some work-life balance, but you always have to give up something to gain something. So for fellowship, you're going for a deeper fund of knowledge. You might be going for some type of academic advancement or an opportunity to learn. You might be going also to enjoy social impact, socialization. Why not? You're going to learn culture. You're going to learn a new medical system. You may be learning an electronic health record. For transplant surgery, fellowship is 100% required. So you have to ask yourself what it is you're interested in. Try to expose yourself. And then when you go for fellowship, I agree with all of those things. You know, go and look at the program, see where you may fit in, see if, you know, how the fellows, etc., are being treated, and then have some personal responsibility because you're an adult learner. So I think in life you can get out of anything that you put in, you can get out. I think that now, you know, being students in this day and age, you have a higher responsibility, and we have our higher responsibility. I think the world is changing to teach you, and then to demand a certain level of education and teaching. But I do think it's about more than just learning a skill or a specific, you know, specialty. I think it's about lifelong learning. I do think so. And that's what I hear. I hear from both sides, you know, it's about lifelong learning. And so that involves having a beer, you know, with your attending on the weekend. It involves going to the beach, but it also involves, you know, whatever you need to do to get that deeper fund of knowledge, which is going to be a level of commitment to learning.
Great.
Okay, so Dr. Linda, what do you expect from fellows, both in technical and personal aspects? Is it really important to be proactive more than just to have a solid technical base?
So that's a good question. I think as I have aged and done this for a while, it's a moving spectrum and it's dynamic. I think that if you search for excellence, you won't get mediocrity. So I think that you have to come and you have to work very hard. In our program, you have to work hard because we're the largest center in the United States for transplant. And that means we're very busy. And so when I was looking at the slides, which were presented at first, and I saw, well, don't go to a program that has, too much call responsibilities. When you're talking about a technical skill, and you're talking about a specialty, you want the breadth of knowledge, which is a volume, and then you want the depth of knowledge, which is the skill set that is required from the difficulty of the cases. I think when I was training, 20 years ago, it used to be okay, if you went to sleep, then you would miss some cases, and then that was no longer good. But nowadays in training, especially in the United States, I have to go to classes to recognize fatigue, to understand when the fellows are burnt out. We call an Uber to get you home. We send you home to sleep. I'm called the mother. I make sure that my fellows eat because I know that a good meal is better than 1 hour of sleep. I know that a shower is better than 20 minutes, and it just has to do with the experience and the stamina. So there is a certain amount of mental stamina that is required to go on because you've already finished a residency, and then you go on to more learning, and whether that's 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. And in transplant surgery, it's 2-year commitment. It means that you need to perform with enough stamina for much longer than just completing residency. So you're right. You have delayed earning. You have, a commitment that you're still an adult, but you're in a very structured, regimented learning environment for another 2 years. But, that's one of the things you have to know is you have to be fairly focused about what it is you want. And it's okay to go to fellowship and then not practice in that field, and you'll still be a better person. You'll be a better physician. You'll be a better, if you choose surgery, you'll be a better surgeon for it. Just based on, those life experiences.
Could you talk a little bit about your personal and professional experience as the fellowship director of the Miami Transplant Institute?
It's an exciting position to be in because it forces you to have continuous and lifelong learning. And I meet a lot of, I don't say young people in a derogatory way, but a lot of physicians who are in their early in their career, who are very excited. They're ready for innovation. They participate in all our clinical conferences and, embrace things. They teach me as much as I teach them because I'm exposed to them and they're exposed to each attending, that we work for, all 10 of us. And so actually they come away with actually a nice rounded type of experience in fellowship, which is critical. And then they continue to teach me, which is very, very rewarding to me. I think that when you look for a fellowship, you have to ask what it is you're interested in life. And you can also seek, physicians that you want to be like, mentors. So I think you have to choose mentors, or they choose you, or yourself. It kind of works itself out depending on your personality and things like that. And then you have to choose sponsors, because in medicine, you need a mentor to tell you how to do things. And then you need a sponsor to show you how to do it or to introduce you into doing it. And I think that, I've had fellows who come and they have every intention of returning to their country. And then, once they become certified and they see, a different opportunity, then sometimes they can stay in the United States and continue to practice there, or they choose to go home. And they go home, well trained, such that, one of the things when you finish fellowship is, what's the return on my investment? Can you find me a job? Can I get a better job at more money? Will I be happier? All of those things. Sometimes the answer is yes, yes, and yes. And sometimes it's like, it depends. And then sometimes it's about opportunity. So I would say that our fellows, once they graduate, are very successful at getting competitive jobs around the world. So, for example, if you are well trained with the breadth and the depth, and you develop competence, which then leads to confidence as a surgeon, as a physician, as a person, and we let you do that through graduated level of responsibility, then that's when, you know, Don went to the Philippines and did the first intestine transplant. That's when, you know, we have someone doing the first living donor in the Caribbean, you know, in a little tiny island with very little resources and things like that. So I think that, you know, it is whatever you put in, but definitely I think that fellowship, you do develop some level of increased confidence, you know, as you train, which can help you perhaps if you are interested in leadership positions, or starting a program, or returning home to help build a program or enhance a program with various skills you wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to gain, because maybe that's just not available, you know, at your institution or in your city or, you know, in your country.
So next question is addressed to all of you. When should we start to prepare to go abroad? Since at the start of graduation, we're unsure of what specialty we want to pursue, and considering that is a big investment involved.
Well, so I'll give you my opinion. I think it's easier for you to choose after you are in your residence, because of course you already know what specialty you're gonna do. Uh, I think putting all the things together, I think you should go, if you have the chance, during your graduation, and after in the residence, you kind of make your organization and be prepared for fellowship if you really want to go. I don't know if Mateus or Linda agrees.
Yeah, I think that it's good to go early if you can. In Brazil, a few years ago, when I went, it was really easy because the government was actually actively interested in sending students abroad. So I had the opportunity to go on the government's dime, and it was really good for me because it opened the opportunities that brought me here to New York today, and kind of like fast tracked my career a little bit to get me to this point. But I think it a lot of it depends. So let me try. Oh, sorry, I just dropped the glass here. It's okay. It's okay. Let me give you a rundown of what I think. So in general, I think that you should be clear on what fellowship means. There's a lot of different meanings. So, for instance, what I'm doing currently is a research fellowship. So I'm working full time as a researcher. There's also, in the American sense, fellowship. When you're talking about fellowship, it's something that you do after residency. So, for instance, that for a transplant, Dr. Chen, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in general, you would do a general surgery residency.
Yes.
Then you would join a fellowship. In my case, for instance, I went to do internal medicine residency, which is in Brazil what we call clínica médica. And then afterwards, I would do a cardiology fellowship, a clinical fellowship, and then an interventional cardiology fellowship. So, just to get this terminology clear. If you want to do a research fellowship, it's a great way to come to the American system. I'm talking a lot about the American system because it's the one that I know. A lot of people nowadays are interested in doing residency in the United States and practicing medicine in the United States. And one of the ways to get a good position here is to have a solid research experience. So especially if you're interested in competitive specialties like urology, or for instance, if you want to do ophthalmology, things like that, ophthalmology or plastic surgery. I know a person that just got into a plastic surgery residency. I mean, programs will generally not take you American programs will generally not take a foreigner, even if you have fantastic grades. You have to have the connections, and you get those connections through research. So I know people, for instance, that they did 2 years of research in University of California, San Diego, and then they got into ophthalmology residency. I know people that went to Basker. Basker is in Miami, and they did research fellowship there as well, and then they got the connections to get them into residency. So that's something also that people should consider. If they want to come to the United States, they need to do some research to understand if their specialty is competitive or not. So, for instance, internal medicine, you can get into a lot of programs without doing research. Although it's really good if you are interested in research. But for other things like plastic surgery, I know this guy. He got into Mayo Clinic plastic surgery, and he did like 2 years of research beforehand. So these are the things that you should consider. Your question was specifically regarding, I think, doing it early, right? Uh, that would be nice. Nowadays, the opportunities are a bit limited to just go in a funded way. So Victor mentioned very correctly that sometimes you won't get a salary to do a fellowship. That is the case in general with research fellowships, especially for people who do not have previous research experience. These people, in generally, they go after medical school is over. My case was unique because the Brazilian government was funding these research years for students. So it was a unique situation, but currently, unfortunately, it's not available. So I think that if you're interested in doing research, and you first you got to know if you really like it. So ideally, I would suggest that people get involved first. Don't focus too much on going abroad. Get involved in your own university. In Brazil, there are several places that have decent research output. Um, and if you get involved and you show the work, people will support you. Faculty in Brazilian universities, they have several contacts abroad, and they can project you in the future. But I think that you should first start building relationships in your own community, start doing research, do some abstracts, present your work in a local conference, try to publish a paper that's paramount, try to write a paper. It's extremely important. And then after you have some notion of what you're doing, then I think it's a great opportunity to like, okay, I want to go abroad now. Should I do only research? Should I do a clinical fellowship? There are also possibilities for people who have residencies in Brazil to do clinical fellowship. So in the United States, in the past, it was more common. Now there's new regulations that stop people from coming here if they're not certified. But it's still possible. So after, for instance, you finish general surgery and cardiac surgery, you come to the United States to do 1 year of structural heart disease, and then you do 1 year dedicated on that with a famous physician, or you go to Germany, or you go to anyway. The possibilities are limitless. What I would give as advice for younger people who are interested in this is to build strong connections in their own departments and try to learn the process, how it works, and then over time try to do something solid when you go abroad. Don't waste your time. Don't waste anyone's time. When you go, it's a unique opportunity. You gotta know how to write. You gotta know how to do some statistics. You gotta know the basics, especially if you're considering research, so that your year is productive and you don't go back to Brazil with nothing to show for it. People will. Dr. Saruji, I'm ranting here. Sorry, guys, but Dr. Saruji has mentioned perfectly that people respect you more when you come back after fellowship. But it's important that you have something to show for it. That you show, look, I went there and I learned this specific thing. I published 1 or 2 papers with this group, and now I know this or that. It's so you have to be very focused on being productive and not wasting your time, because time is the only more important than money. So yeah, I hope that I answered your question.
Yes, it did.
I think that in order to be highly competitive, whether you're looking for a fellowship or anything in life, it would help to be prepared. So I agree with you 100%. So I can speak to clinical fellowships. All clinical fellowships in the United States require that you pass the USMLE step 1, 2, and 3. The reason is actually step 3 is required to go from the intern year. It doesn't matter what residency you are in to the second year, because it's required to get a license to practice medicine, which is what people get after the first year. So even if you're in fellowship, you need at least a training license. And so most fellowships require step 1, 2, and 3. And I have a lot of people who apply to my program with step 1 and 2. And really, if you don't get step 3, I can't get you a license, a training license, because really you're asking someone who's a PGY 6 or above to actually start practicing medicine, when someone who's a PG at the end of the PGY 1 year and they've done internship, those are the people who already have USMLE 1, 2, and 3. So my advice to you is, while you're doing residency in Brazil or anywhere, or you're in medical school, for example, if you're studying basic science, it's very easy to take step 1 and 2. And so you should get that done, even if you're just, playing with the idea that maybe one day you want to, come to the US, for example, because the USMLE will be required. And the higher score you get is the more competitive you will be. So I agree, you have to be kind of focused with that. And like anything, when you compete, if you're in the top 10 percentile, it's different from if you're in the bottom, 50. So I think that's important. I also agree that, anything you do in life, you want to be able to get a measure of success. And it's important for you and how, you present yourself. So in life, there's veritas and there's gravitas. And the one means that you have the training and experience, and then the other is that you have the believability for people to follow. And I think that you're right. If you go to a specific place and you publish a couple papers and you have the experience and you win friends and influence people, for example, you make those connections, then they get you those are the ones that write you good letters of recommendation, and they really know you. And actually, when I accept someone for fellowship, everybody's coming on the same even par with, their resumes look similar, their training, in surgical residency look similar, etc. And what gets them in the end is going to be a damn good recommendation letter. So you want to start that early. You want to get to know the physicians you work with in medical school, if it's residency, in order to get to fellowship, and you want to get very good recommendations from them. And you can only do that by getting to know them, by being a team member. I think I saw something that said, come early and stay late. I don't think you have to do that every single Friday night, but I think that establishes veritas and gravitas. And also, for example, communicating really well, because communication skills are excellent. And I don't mean a command of the English language. I mean just the ability to get along and be professional and communicate well. I think all of those things are important when you are preparing, for a fellowship or thinking about a fellowship. Why not have those things done, in order to have the opportunity? Because if you don't do them and you think, okay, now I'm going to apply for fellowship, then it's too late, because, if you don't meet the requirements, then it'll be very hard to get in, I think.
We all talked about how fellowships programs enhance the technology and medical knowledge of local communities. The experience doctors gain with international experience can be very important for developing countries. However, what does the hospital gain with it? Why would my hospital choose to run a fellowship program?
Come again? What's the question?
And we all talk about how fellowships programs enhance technology and medical knowledge of local communities, and the experience doctors gain with international experience can be very important for developing countries. However, what does the hospital gain with that? Why would my hospital choose to run a fellowship program?
Just imagine that I don't know what's the upper name, Dr. Chen, but I can tell you what I see here. I work in a company that is mostly foreigners. So imagine that you are in the most important country in the world, I guess, like the United States. So you are the richest country, has a lot of money. Everyone wants to come here. And then imagine that every year you get an inflow of highly motivated individuals from 200 countries in the world, and every year there's people that is interested in publishing and working, and every year they leave and new ones come. Just imagine what it does for a country. It's amazing. The level of productivity that you can have with those individuals, if you're able to attract them to your country, I think that they gain a lot, and for them it's really easy. I am on a visa here. My visa ends in 1 year, and for the organization that I'm working in, for them to give this sort of visa, it's very cheap for them. So they get people that are interested in working, and for them it's amazing. They publish more, they do more work. I think that the hospital gains a lot, and especially in terms of cost in the U.S. for a physician, an attending physician. Just imagine a regular physician in the U.S. can have a salary of $300,000 a year. It's a lot of money. You can get a lot of work done if you have fellows that under the leadership of the physician, and it's a lot cheaper for the hospital as well. So, and you get highly qualified work. So I think that these are very clear ways that hospitals and institutions tend to benefit from getting foreign fellows. What do you guys think?
I would agree. One question is, why should the hospital have a fellowship? So the question I would return is, what is the need of the community? So, for example, it's very obvious in transplant. We have end organ. We have people with liver disease that are, going to die. We have people who have kidney disease that are required to live on a machine. So, for example, transplant is 100% necessary. Now, why go away and train to come back, for example, to Brazil or anywhere? Well, it's about reputation, right? You want to make sure that people know that you're adequately trained, that you can do the job, that you have some prowess, some academic prowess, because you went to a good institution and trained, you had this many cases, you are, clinically skilled if you choose to do surgery, or if you choose to do medicine, cardiology, you have to be able to do your interventional skills. If you're going to do research, can you go do some research and have, for example, quality improvement initiatives for the hospital? Can you manage a program, which you would need that Veritas and that Gravitas to do? Could you run a clinical trial? If you are doing research, those things take skill. And by doing research, you learn those things. If you're doing basic science research, then can you apply it to translational research? Because all the money, the dollars in research are from the bench to the bedside and back, right? People do bench research in order to plan for a future translational application to clinical medicine, for example, which is pretty much the way that things go. The National Institute of Health, that's what they spend their health dollars are when they support these big clinical trials and things like that. So I think it's not just about elitism. I think it's about, increasing your academic prowess, not just getting a specific ability or a deeper fund of knowledge, but, to have a level of accreditation, your personal accreditation, to seek fellowship.
Well, I agree. I agree with Linda and Mateus. indeed, when you have all this knowledge and all this surrounding that you learn in fellowship, when you come back, you have influence in your community. So the place where you did your fellow, they have influence all over the world, or all over the country. Because so when an institution holds a fellowship program, you have the power to influence lots of places around the world. So one of the things is power of influence, and the second thing is what Mateus said. It's a workforce, not in the bad sense, but in a good sense, because you have people with a lot of eager to do research and to learn new stuff, and so you have a lot of you got more productive because got a lot of people working together to learn and to build something. So I think it's the main two things that institution gain with a fellowship: influence and work power.
So, as Dr. Lindo said, mental health is an important part to be considered during a fellowship program. How do Mateus and Victor visualize their mental distress during their fellowship? This question may also extend to Dr. Linda's personal experience with fellowship.
I'll let the guys go first because they just went to fellowship.
Deal with distractions, that's the question.
Yeah.
I think that we are living in a very unique situation right now because it's COVID, and I'm in New York City, which was especially affected by the situation. And since March, was it March? Yeah, March. I've been working from home essentially. So I do clinical research. I don't have to be on the bench during like experiments and things, so I can do a lot of stuff from home actually, and it has been surprisingly productive. Because and that's something that I think that the worst thing in a fellowship is if you don't have things to do. In a I know a friend. He's actually a student. It's not a friend of mine. He's a friend of a friend who is in Yale right now, in New Haven, and he went. This guy, like poor guy, he got a fellowship during medical school to do neuroscience research, and he got a full scholarship and everything. And he got there, and it's a lot of bench work, so you have to be in the lab, and a lot of it, like, he lost the opportunity. He had to stay home because of COVID, and activities were locked. So for him, it was very difficult. I don't know what I would do in that situation. I think that the most important thing when you come to a fellowship is try to remain active. You may have feelings like when the first time that I went to abroad, I had some difficulties, especially in the beginning, because I was 20 years old. I had never lived outside of my parents' house, and I missed a lot of my family and those things. So I had a lot of difficulties in the beginning, and that's something that everyone who does something like this will face. But that will go away after a while, as long as you're focused and working to be successful in this new country that you are, and hardworking. You have plenty of things to do, and your mind will be away from the distractions if you're busy. So my advice is to stay busy, work hard, and you won't have to worry about those things if you're publishing papers and getting your PubMed filled with nice publications. You won't worry about distractions. You'll be happy. I'm happy. So
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I think when you go to the fellowship, as I told the beginning of the lecture, there's different ways of facing your fellowship, because it's a really special year or years, depends on the time you're spending. But you're doing something you really want, because in the beginning of your medical career, you're studying things that it's not of your interest, because you need to form your base to get further and ahead. But then when you're choosing a fellowship, it's really the specialty you want to do, and so it's a really exciting period. And well, mostly, I don't think you shouldn't have mental distress, but mostly physical distress. And the physical distress you can manage, as Linda said. You go take a shower, you sleep a couple of hours, eat some good meal, then you're recovered, and you just gotta do your maximum to take all of the knowledge and learn and do research, everything. And the mental distress, I think it's not a big issue in the fellowship program. I'm talking about my experience. And just a short story. When I was in Germany, there came a guy from China, and he never ate with a fork and knife before, and he didn't know if the rice was, he should take the rice with a fork or the knife and put it in his mouth. So he was so excited with the fellowship that in the middle of the fellowship, he brought his family to Germany to live with him, and he was really excited. He wanted to live there and to his family to see everything. And so it was a really intense and really good experience for him. And in the opposite hand, there was this friend of mine that went to France with me, and he hated everything. So you gotta, if you set your goals, if you prepare yourself, you choose the right institution, and you're gonna be happy in your fellowship.
So I have a different experience because I manage fellows, and I manage 5 a year for 5 years. That's a lot of fellows. However, I think there's 4 major stresses: death, which we don't have to talk about because that's not what we're dealing with. I think there's marriage, and many of the fellows come with young girlfriends, fiancés, and wives, and then new job, and then new home. So you got 3 of the major life stressors, and then you have this new job, which is called fellowship. You have new home, which could be a new cultural experience as well, a language barrier, a difference in the medical, health system, and then you have this marriage and these demands at home. And I think you have to have a fairly independent partner, because if they're looking, where is my spouse or my partner, and that you have to establish, gravitas and veritas, and come early, stay late, and work, extra hard, or do an extra project because you have a small amount of time to accomplish, a lot of things, maybe do, a research project as well as, finish up a clinic. Then you have to have a spouse that interacts with you like this, is happy when you're home, you make some special, sacrifices, etc. You do take that afternoon off, but then maybe you have to work in the evening, etc. You can't have a spouse that's going to call you every day at 4 and ask, when are you coming home? When are you coming home? What's for dinner? Because then that's going to be increased stress. And I can tell the difference between the fellows who have an independent, relationship and a very strong bond, and the time they spend together is productive. So I send my fellows home to eat dinner, to tuck the children in, to read the bedside story, to take a glass of wine for a few hours, or a nap, to make sure they answer all the calls that come from home, no matter if they're in the middle of surgery, because your family should be first. But at the same time, you have to try to play this little game of balance. In terms of lifelong happiness and work-life balance, everybody discusses work-life balance. It's a part of what we all strive for in life. I think if you have a supportive relationship, if you have some type of legacy, whether it's going to be write a paper, whether it's going to be, I'm going to get these extra, PhD on my CV, or, I'm going to get this fellowship training, which is what we're talking about here today. And that you have some satisfaction in your job. And if you have lifelong learning, you will be happy. And happiness is transient, and it depends on, what you're doing. And it's not going to be every day, and you're not going to get up and say, I feel great every morning. But I think that if you get on that path for lifelong learning, some type of, legacy that you're creating, some satisfaction in the job that you're doing, even though it's in a training level, and establishing some relationships, and that could be professional relationships. Not everybody comes with a spouse. Some people gain a spouse or a new baby or something during fellowship, because fellowship is that critical age, where you are looking, to, get important relationships, a family, etc. And all my fellows have babies, or they get married, or they're newly married, or they find a spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or what have you during a fellowship. And it's quite a juggle. It's quite a juggle, but nonetheless rewarding. Yeah.
Nice.
And Dr. Mateus started talking a little about how his routine is going during quarantine. And we'd like to hear from all of you. How has COVID pandemic affected the fellowship scenario, and being that of the hospital or the fellows themselves?
I can say something. For me, actually, I run a registry, international registry, that we have over 100, almost 200 hospitals all over the world working in a specific procedure. And we were doing like this very big analysis that is under review now. And we needed a lot of data collection from these centers. And this is kind of like a volunteer work. They don't get paid for it. We don't have industry support. So they do it because they want to participate in the science. And during COVID, a lot of our centers are in Italy, which was like hugely affected. And during COVID, surprisingly, people were more productive because a lot of these physicians, they are interventional cardiologists or surgeons, and they weren't having cases, so they actually they were at home and they needed things to do, and we gave them something. We need to get data and things like that. So our projects actually moved more quickly during this pandemic. So it was unique because I wasn't expecting it to happen. I was expecting things to grind down, and some things actually stopped. But some specific projects, like people actually got used to it fairly quickly, I think. What do you think, Dr.
So for us, I work in a field where transplant is considered essential. And whereas we did have to slow down our living donor because we didn't want to expose the donor and risk, a healthy person getting sick, because the mortality is very high after surgery for people. That's why we stopped elective cases to create beds in the hospital and also not put our donors at risk. But for the deceased donors, you only might get the offer once every 2-3 years, and you might be on a list for a long period of time. And so you always have to weigh the risks and benefits of having transplant. So we actually did not slow down for the deceased donor transplants, but we were lucky and fortunate that we always had enough beds, enough ICU space. Our patients are transplant patients, so they're used to wearing masks all the time, washing hands frequently, isolating anyway because they're immune suppressed. So we did not slow down in the first phase in March and April. Now, I have to say that we've had our second surge, and it's coming. And it started last week when the state opened up 2 weeks ago. And so we'll have to wait and see. But we had to stop our living donor program again. We stopped it last week, at the end of last week, when we saw the surge coming on our service. And we also held our pancreas program because those patients need ICU beds, and they're higher immune suppressed, and they may need to go back to the operating room for washouts and things. Sorry, I have a phone call because I have a case, but so I think that you do adapt. We all adapt. I'm now going to go and put on my surgical hat and my face mask and my N95 and a cover shield and my blue gown, even just to walk into the hospital in a few minutes. So you do have to adapt, and you do have to live in the new normal or new abnormal. And for us, it hasn't affected our program, at least yet.
this is great. After hearing Linda and all her comments, I feel like I want to do her fellowship program. I think I will not be accepted, but it seems really nice. Well, I'm not in a fellowship right now, so I think Linda's and Theo's opinions are really good in it. No.
Okay. So we have two more questions. First one is addressed to you, Victor. You mentioned there are some fellowship programs in Brazil. Do you think it can be a better experience for a Brazilian student than going abroad?
It depends on your long-term goal. Coming back to the first slide. So actually in Brazil, our fellowship programs are really intense because we have a lot of, because of the social disparities, the public hospitals, they have a lot of patients, and so have a lot of practice. And well, it's easier for us to perform a fellowship in Brazil, but the programs are really in the beginning, and they're, I mean, in the United States, they're way ahead of us. Maybe in a couple of years, or maybe a decade from now, we have really good fellowship programs. But I think for research fellowship, we're really behind the United States. So if you want to do research, maybe you should consider going abroad, especially to the United States. If you want to do a practice fellowship, and if you want to live in Brazil especially, you should maybe stay here. And I just want to say a small thing. Maybe if you think of living forever in the United States or whatever, somewhere out of Brazil, you should go for it, and maybe even do the residence outside. Because doing the residence program, you form your connections, and so if you do your residence in the United States, a fellowship there, and then come back to Brazil, this is not going to work. So maybe you should, if you think of living abroad, you should start with a residence, not a fellowship. But yeah, I think Brazil, we have some good fellowships in the future. It depends on the area you want.
Okay, so now we've reached our last question, and it is addressed to all of you. Beyond magical knowledge and experience, how do you think this experience abroad help us to be a better human being?
I'll answer that. I think that any experience in life helps you to be a better human being if you open your mind and you're exposed. I think that you can have different. I've lived in 3 countries and several areas in the United States, the Midwest, out west in California now, and in the Southwest. And I think that even the United States is a different culture depending on where you live. The New Yorkers are intense. The Californians are laid back and all hug trees. And experience. I mean, I'm Jamaican from the islands, and so living here is very much like being home. In terms of the food, some culture, it's warm, sunshine, there's the beach, etc. But I think that anytime you go through life, if you go through with an open mind, I mean, if I had never gone to do postdoctorate fellowship after I did my or during my general surgery residency, to tell you the truth, I would have never have visited the great parks in California. I would never have had this enriched environment where I met researchers. I learned to read the medical literature. I broke 1 million pipettes before I finally could do RT-PCR. I met different people. I had exposures. Then I was given opportunity because of those exposures. And I think that the group spoke about that early on. But always in life, you're going to have experiences and they're going to make you better. They're going to make you that wise old person kind of thing, and it doesn't matter whether you succeed or you fail, because you can't get to a certain age without failing at something, and everyone's failed at something. We might be too proud to tell you what we failed at, but everyone fails at something. And it's okay, I think, to have experiences. Obviously, we don't go through medical school and then residency and then fellowship and then super fellowship and then pediatric. We don't go through all of that stuff to fail. And sometimes, it's so easy being in a academia to just keep training and training. And, it's so beautiful to have this academic and enriching deep, type of learning experience. But for sure, if you just wake up every day, you're going to have life experiences and they're going to change you. And, you know, for the better or the worse. And I think for the better, because you're going to have some experiences that other people don't have, and you're going to have some experiences outside your country and some cultural and some education, and you're going to eat good food and you're going to have good wine, with new friends. And I think all of those things are as important as having an intense training. Don't get me wrong. If you come to Miami, which is the largest transplant center in the nation, you will be working very hard. You will lose a lot of sleep. But my fellows are happy. I mean, 2 nights, 3 nights this week, we operated. On the second night, I said, do you want me to get another fellow? Do you need to sleep? No, I don't. And I'll tell you why. When you're excited and you love what you're doing, and you do a case, for example, it doesn't matter, liver, kidney, pancreas transplant, you do it and you have a good outcome, no matter how tired you are, you feel invigorated. And it's not because I'm heuristic, I did it, I'm great, I saved their life, whatever. It's because of your passion and what you put into it, and it returns it tenfold. And so that's why I can say at age 50, I'm not really going to tell you my age, but that every single day I get up and I have to go to the OR now, is I'm still excited, and I think that has to do with that passion. And do I learn every day? Every day. Am I happy? Most of the time, but I think that's part and parcel of it. And I think you're going to have a positive experience. And so everybody should go, take that step and have that different experience. And, and it can be scary, but I think it's well worth it. Yeah.
Really well. I think Linda said a lot of important things, and she said everything actually. But well, it's a really changing experience to have a fellowship. I think if you stay in Brazil, it will be different, because if you go to a different environment, a hostile environment, you kind of see different things, how people behave, and you learn a lot with examples, as I told, with bad and good examples. So I think it's a really life-changing experience to perform a fellowship. And I recommend to everyone. I think if you have the chance, it has a lot of good things, more positive than negative things for sure. I don't know what Mateus thinks.
Absolutely. I think it's a lot more positives than some negatives that will be scattered here and there, but the positives are a lot stronger. And honestly, after a while, you won't even remember the negatives, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got to the end of our second Brain Comes warm-up in partnership with a Black. And in behalf of our organizing committee and a Black Students Commission, I'd like to thank our guests very much for sharing their experience with us today. I'm sure that it will positively impact a lot of students that are watching us. And I hope it can help encouraging everyone to go further in medical training. I believe the topics we discussed today will open horizons to many students. They are very important. And so does anyone have anything to add or any final comments?
I think that everyone should embrace and should try new things. And, if anyone's interested in transplant fellowship, for sure, give me an email, give me a call. I'll be happy to answer anything. I'm from, foreign, I'm an immigrant. So I did a number of different things, but I did all my surgery residency and fellowship here in this country. and then super fellowship. Actually, I enjoyed it so much. I did pediatrics transplant, but I think that each person has a different journey. I also did postdoctorate fellowship in the lab for 2 years, which is not my thing. So you do learn what you're not good at and what you're not interested in. But that doesn't mean to say that that was a negative thing, or that I suffered for it, or that I was a failure, because there's a lot of things that I got out of the lab, from doing it, including learning the medical literature, how to read it, how to do research, how to appreciate research, what the importance of translational research is. So you do things in your life and you think, okay, did I just waste 2 years of my life, or did I, what was the positive impact of that? And I think that there's always a positive, and you can interpret it that way. So that's it. Good luck, everybody.
Really nice.
Anyone else?
If anyone have anything, wants to ask questions later, just shoot me an email. I don't know if you guys can let the email in the list or the end of the presentation. And I'm happy to, if you want to go and check the urology department, University of São Paulo. We have a lot of internship rotations, short ones, not fellowship, but if you want to spend a week there, a couple of weeks, you're more than invited. Just write me.
And it's the same in Miami. We're happy to have observers, not right now because of COVID, but we're happy to have observers, and we for sure have many different observership programs. I have one for minorities. I have one for women. Dr. Viana is very active and has several observers come from Brazil, and we have observers from all over the world. And so that too is a nice experience. It's a cultural experience. And we have many Portuguese surgeons too. So you can even hear your own tongue, your own mother tongue. And we speak Spanish, so we can understand some of what you say.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to participate.
Thank you very much too. I enjoyed this. Have a good day.
Okay, so thank you again, and thank you very much for your time and attention. It was amazing having you here with us, and have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Há mais de 80 anos, o Hospital São Paulo vem cuidando da saúde de brasileiros e brasileiras. Com a chegada do coronavírus ao Brasil, temos atuado dia e noite com a missão de salvar vidas. Neste momento tão crítico da pandemia, houve um aumento significativo na procura por atendimento médico e hospitalar. Pessoas chegam com febre, tosse, dificuldade de respirar. E para garantir a segurança de nossos profissionais de saúde e continuar a tratar de forma adequada nossos pacientes, precisamos da sua ajuda. Todas as doações salvarão vidas. Tudo que está sendo arrecadado é divulgado de maneira transparente em nosso site. Junte-se a esta rede de solidariedade. Saiba como doar em www.unifesp.br/doe-HSP. Quem salva vidas precisa viver.
O voluntariado EPM surgiu no dia 18 de março de uma iniciativa conjunta entre os alunos de medicina e a diretoria da Escola Paulista de Medicina, acreditando na vontade e capacidade dos alunos em fazer a diferença no enfrentamento à pandemia. Logo que nos organizamos, iniciamos o primeiro projeto, a campanha de doações para o Hospital São Paulo. Observando o crescente número de casos de Covid-19 em outros países, entendemos a necessidade dos equipamentos de proteção individual para os médicos da linha de frente do hospital e para os pacientes. Nos revezamos em turnos desde então para receber as doações de empresas e da comunidade e desenvolvemos alternativas aos produtos comerciais. Conseguimos, com isso, manter nossos profissionais protegidos e manter a segurança no atendimento. o hospital criou uma unidade para atender pacientes com sintomas respiratórios com maior atenção. O voluntariado viu a possibilidade de promover a telemedicina com os pacientes desta unidade, orientando fatores de risco e acolhendo as pessoas doentes. Isto diminuiu o número que retornava ao hospital com sintomas leves e resolveu as dúvidas da população em relação à pandemia. A demanda das comunidades próximas ao Hospital São Paulo surgiram também no início do projeto. Assim, nasceram projetos de apoio às comunidades com organização e trabalho ativo dos voluntários. Realizamos vacinação contra a influenza no local, produzimos e distribuímos material informativo atuando na educação em saúde. Estendemos a vacinação em batalhões da Polícia Militar e vacinamos os profissionais de saúde do próprio hospital. Outras iniciativas, como a de acolhimento de alunos doentes, de promoção de saúde, de pesquisa, de cuidado com a saúde mental, de acolhimento às pessoas em luto, de cuidado e atenção à criança e de produção de vídeos educativos aos profissionais de saúde surgiram. Hoje, são mais de 20 frentes de trabalho, e com esse número de projetos e o aumento da demanda, foi necessário criar uma rede organizacional com todos os projetos. Essa rede foi centrada em um comitê composto por 6 alunos da medicina, 16 professores e a diretoria da escola. Todas as demandas são discutidas em reuniões, construindo os projetos a partir da opinião e participação de todos do grupo. Então, logo o projeto é aprovado, são criados subgrupos pela internet, dando início aos trabalhos. A organização em rede e o trabalho em equipe fazem a diferença e se mostram em nossos resultados. As doações arrecadadas passam dos milhares de itens e milhões em financiamento. Além dos números que as ações geram, das 12.000 vacinas aplicadas, das 2.500 ligações para pacientes, das 1.000 refeições distribuídas, a solidariedade que o projeto inspira atinge muito mais do que se pode contar em números. A paralisação das aulas impôs novos desafios pedagógicos e o voluntariado se mostrou uma opção. Ensina aos alunos e aos professores sobre medicina humanizada na prática, retribuição à sociedade, conhecimento e solidariedade. A faculdade tem deveres com a sociedade que a cerca, e seus alunos não podem ficar alienados disto, e, realmente, não ficaram. O legado que esse projeto deixa é como se pode fazer uma educação médica melhor, como incluir os alunos ativamente no processo, como sair dos muros da faculdade e trabalhar com a população, como valores de empatia, de solidariedade, de cuidado com o outro são a base da medicina que a escola deseja construir. A retomada das aulas presenciais para o 6º ano e teóricas à distância para o 5º já são diferentes por causa desse legado. O futuro possibilita muito mais para a Escola Paulista de Medicina e seus alunos.